Benue is in Nigeria's Middle Belt, a region where the majority Muslim north meets the largely Christian south. The region faces competition over land use with conflicts between herders who seek grazing land for their cattle and farmers who need arable land for cultivation. These tensions are often worsened by overlapping ethnic and religious divisions. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says the country and the US have started diplomatic deliberations on a number of issues, including the tariff increases that his counterpart Donald Trump has implemented. Ramaphosa says this follows his recent trip to the US. MPs of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Umpile Mautwe, asked Ramaphosa how the trip would benefit the country. Speaking in the National Assembly during the oral answer session yesterday, Ramaphosa defended the trip, saying he had accomplished his mission.
So we do believe that we achieved those objectives. The engagement with the American government has started. Soon after we left Washington, the engagement has now commenced, and there are discussions that are happening in relation to tariffs, in relation to investments, and we believe that we have reset the relationship despite what we could have seen on television. We were able to have a much more meaningful discussion and meeting with President Trump and his representatives during the quiet room where we had lunch together and had meaningful exchanges on a number of issues.
Statistics South Africa says nearly 1 in 5 South Africans lack access to safely managed sanitation. According to the General Household Survey, 71.8% of urban residents have access to safely managed water, but only 36.7% of rural populations do. The report further states that even though access to safe is inequitable. Soli Mulai is acting DDG responsible for population and social statistics at Stats SA.
Water, we're seeing that the number of households who have access to improved water, meaning that a source of water in a dwelling or in a yard. We are seeing that over time, provinces are also reaching above the 80s, except provinces like your Eastern Cape and Limpopo, which are below the national averages. And if you overlay the sanitation indicators, you will see again that your Eastern Cape and Limpopo and KZN, those are some of the provinces that are still struggling when coming to sanitation.
Namibia will today hold its first National Remembrance Day for more than 70,000 Africans that German colonial forces had massacred more than a century ago. The victims had been targeted because they had refused to let the colonizers take their land and cattle. The BBC's Elsa Orkney has the story.
For many years, Germany did not publicly acknowledge the genocide of the Over-Herero and Nama communities that took place between 1904 and 1908. But 4 years ago, Germany apologised for its role in the slaughter. Almost 40 years before their use in the Holocaust, concentration camps and pseudo-scientific experiments were used by German officials to torture and kill people in what was then called Southwest Africa. There'll be a national holiday and a minute's silence and candlelit vigil outside Parliament in Windhoek.
And finally, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky will visit Berlin for the first time since Friedrich Merz became Germany's Chancellor. They will hold discussions which will focus on starting further peace talks with Russia and new sanctions against Moscow. The BBC's Jessica Parker has the story.
Mr. Merz is vocal in his criticism of Moscow and in his backing for Kyiv, and has cast aside the more cautious tone of his predecessor, Olaf Scholz. But Mr. Merz's outspoken style caused confusion this week when he claimed that Germany was among countries no longer setting range restrictions on weapons delivered to Ukraine, without clarifying whether that meant Berlin might finally supply its powerful Taurus missiles to Kyiv. He's also said he wants Germany's army to become the strongest conventional force within Europe as a means of deterrence.
Recapping the top story this hour, at least 42 people were shot dead by suspected herders in a series of weekend attacks across Gwe West District in Nigeria's central Benue state. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Mana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa.
Across borders, across time zones, on air, online.
This is Channel Africa.
Africa has a voice.
Good morning is the tone of our show, really, because we are a morning show when it's in South Africa. I don't know which part of the world that you're listening to us from, but it's 9 o'clock right here in South Africa. We're broadcasting from Johannesburg. Wherever you're in the world, thank you for joining us right here on our third floor station. We're right here at the tall building in Auckland Park. It feels like a monument every time you actually come to work, because you know that you're just about to be in the tallest buildings, or one of the tallest buildings in Johannesburg, South Africa. So thank you for joining us from where we are based here at the SABC headquarters, and you are listening to us on DSTV channel 802, OpenView 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za. What makes this building even taller is that it's on a hilly Auckland Park, and it feels like where we are sitting from, you can see the views of Sandton not so far away from where we are. So definitely Joburg is the hub of the conversations that we are trying to facilitate, but they're not just Johannesburg conversations that we're having, but ones that are filtering through the entire continent. Well, we're going to be having some fantastic conversations today until midday Central African time. This is an interesting one, because I think that every time we think about women and pregnancy, we really have a high expectation as Africans, especially we want them to actually be bearing the child, pretty much. Hey, we must make sure that, hey, they have a great pregnancy. But once they deliver the baby, we're almost like, yeah, well done. You did such a wonderful job. You are such a champ. And then we just walk away and we kind of like, we move on, don't we? We're like, yeah, she did well. Or maybe sometimes women go through a failure when they are actually going through pregnancy, and they don't actually go through a successful pregnancy. And at times we also leave them hanging, and also we leave that moment of grief up to them to a large degree, and the closest people around them. And that's a tricky situation. That's what we're going to be speaking about today. There's a lady by the name of Tumelo Moreri, a Botswana-based womb medicine woman who helps heal women's core inner wounds or inner womb pains. And this is an interesting one, right? Because it seems like ethereal or out there. But what women go through, we'll never know. As a man, I'm just talking as an observer and as an outsider, and I'll never really understand that particular pain. But, you know, that recovery is probably one of the most difficult things to go through, whether you had a successful pregnancy or one that didn't pan out well. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about this experience of actually finding yourself once again post-pregnancy. Tumelo recently hosted what is currently called a 7-week partly email series on Setswana indigenous teachings and practices for pregnancy loss. And that's going to be a conversation that we have just in a few minutes' time. And then we just heard bad news recently. You know, the gender-based violence issue keeps coming back here in South Africa. There was a tragic incident involving a 30-year-old South African woman. I'm thinking about that. That's the age of my little sister. So it could have been anyone in my life or my friends, or that context kind of, it does kind of worry me that it's happening all the time. And at times we make it about other people. But when you make it about the woman in your life, it just feels like, you know what? we're not getting that reckoning moment where we are dealing with this. So another incident of a woman who just was found dead and was reported missing this past Sunday after meeting a man for a first date. And there's a conversation that's happening on social media where people are saying, people are meeting the wrong ways, or should we be meeting this way? We're not quite sure how these two met, definitely. But the online conversation that's happening is online dating. Everyone on TikTok, everyone on X are speaking about, whether online dating is actually safe. So we'll unpack that a little bit and look at what kind of safety tips we can try to garner for this one, because I think even tips are things that have a limitation. You almost have to use your sensibility on this one. So we'll speak about online dating a little bit later, and then we'll tell you what's coming up on our Live Well feature in the third hour a little bit later on the show.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Let's go on our socials. We're live on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. Find us at Channel Africa 1. We're also engaging the conversation on X. Use our hashtag On The Move, as well as on TikTok. And of course, the number on our WhatsApp line and direct line is +27 63 406 9126. Hop on. It's a beautiful 3-hour journey. This is On The Move.
The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
Mazuka Wanji Nonse, Zukani, the Shy Guy, a Morning Switch.
Have you ever listened to a song and then it gives you goosebumps? Cause it takes you way back in the 80s. My goodness. Yay! Woo! Hey, baby. You hear Yvonne Chaga Chaga there. I wanna talk to the DJ. And then the DJ goes like, hey, baby, I've got you on the other side. Huh? There were no WhatsApps then, right? There were no sliding in the DMs at the time. Oh, man.
Your weekend mornings are activated with the Shy Guy on the Morning Switch. Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
9 to 12 midday, Central African Time.
On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Mushatama.
Hey, just a reminder, we are live on our live stream, so you can check us out there. If you want to see what's happening in studio and you want to see some of our guests as they come in and out of our live video streams, check out our live streaming on our Facebook page. It's simply titled Channel Africa. And also you can go to that YouTube channel at Channel Africa 1 and be part of the conversations there. Hey, come in different parts of the continent and let us know where you are listening to Channel Africa from. Well, let's get into this first hour conversation. Today we speak to Tumelo Mureri, a Botswana-based womb medicine woman, helping mostly, women heal their inner wounds or inner womb pains, and to experience pleasure, confidence, and freedoms in their bodies, their lives, and leadership. She recently hosted what is currently known as a 7-part weekly email series on Setswana indigenous teachings and practices for pregnancy loss. Well, this particular series was meant to archive and share age-old teachings and practices within the Setswana tradition of how a woman used to be cared for after being experienced a loss, a pregnancy loss to be more specific, because such wisdom is being lost or forgotten and really not widely practiced in modern times. So we have Tumelo on the line. Welcome on the show, Tumelo.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Such a joy to be here with you.
It's such a joy to have this conversation with you. We have high expectations, as I mentioned in our earlier intro. We have a high expectation for women when it comes to pregnancy. In fact, we think the human body, especially the female body, is actually self-healing. We always come to that resort. They'll be fine. Women will be okay. We think they've got the mental capacity to deal with the distresses. In fact, I don't think as Black communities, we really understand the mental strain that women even face during pregnancy. But even after a successful pregnancy, it feels like we also leave women to heal by themselves in modern times, where before there were rituals and cleansing ceremonies that used to take place that helped women to actually recover. It's even worse when it comes to pregnancy loss, because it feels like we don't know what to do, and then we resort also to Western ways of actually dealing with that particular moment of loss. How did you get into this? Because I think it's an important conversation for us to have, because it's one that I think we just shove aside and we just let women be, but we don't really centralize some of the key challenges that they have when it comes to carrying the baby itself, but most importantly, the experience of loss and birth.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Benjamin. Hi, Palesa, to you too.
Hi, Dumelo.
It's such a joy to be here. And thank you so much for that introduction. So I'm actually a womb healer, and I'm currently working on a body of work on womb healing for pregnancy loss. And this email series that you've mentioned, Benjamin, is actually supported and guided by an ebook that I've recently written on the same theme of Setswana indigenous teachings and practices for pregnancy loss. And I'd say for me, it was like a natural direction to take, and just given my work and my path as a womb healer, right? However, when we look at our society today, there really isn't much conversation on pregnancy loss. There's a lot that, magazines will write about pregnancy, but there really isn't a real education on pregnancy as a rite of passage of womanhood, right? And as a result, there's also very little real education on what needs to happen should a loss occur on that journey of pregnancy, right? So pregnancy loss is largely a taboo subject in our society, right? Something that many women experience alone, and that they experience in silence, and that is shrouded in a lot of shame, right? So when we're talking about pregnancy loss, it can either be a miscarriage, it can be stillbirth, it can be a chosen loss, it can be an abortion, right? And when you look at just what's happening across our African continent, like in most of our African countries and across the world, really, abortion is illegal, right? And so for abortion especially, that adds another layer of it. Like all of pregnancy loss is a taboo, right? But when you look at chosen losses, like it's even a greater taboo subject, right? And so the intention of my ebook was really to avail this wisdom, right? So that we as women may know what needs to happen, so that we may have this as a resource of support to know how to support ourselves in our healing and in our recovery should loss happen, right? And it's specifically of the Setswana tradition because I'm a Motswana from Botswana. And so that's where I really had, I that was the only place I could begin, right? However, even though the ebook is on the Setswana tradition, it's also an invitation to all of us as women, to get curious about what's held within our own traditions, really to get curious about the practices in our own traditions of how to care for women who have experienced pregnancy loss.
Yeah, I think that is remarkable that you actually even thought about, those multiple dynamics, because at times when we speak about pregnancy loss, we don't think about the voluntary pregnancy loss, like you highlighted abortion. And at times when we think about abortion, we don't think that those women earn a way of healing from that particular loss themselves because they chose that particular loss. So I think that dynamic is very powerful that you've included that in your response there. We'll continue to speak a little bit about this around your research, around the women you spoke to, and collating all this information and some of your findings there, because it's a lot of lost wisdom. Some of these women probably you were speaking to probably have so many things that we've lost in our communities, but we'll deal with that after our break. We're speaking to Tumelo Mureri, who is a Botswana-based womb healer, and we'll continue to speak to her after this.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Alors peut-on considérer cette décision comme un désengagement durable des États-Unis vis-à-vis du développement africain, ou s'agit-il d'un simple réalignement stratégique?
Bon, ça peut être les deux à la fois. Donc, au lieu de donner de l'argent à la Banque africaine de développement pour partager en vrac, ils préfèrent maintenant donc cibler les pays partenaires en Afrique. Ça, c'est pour le réalignement stratégique. Alors, et aussi, ce n'est pas un désengagement durable, mais je pense que dans les 2 ou 3 prochaines années, il veut d'abord remettre de l'ordre dans ses affaires.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Get set and be ready to go.
On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Mushatama.
The womb itself is such a special place, and I feel like even in a lot of African cultures, there are, hidden but also lost forms of understanding the womb through some of the, age-old practices that we've had in our various African cultures. And I was actually on TikTok this week, as usual, and I saw a particular woman speaking about the womb as a powerful thing, as a portal. Apparently, it has its own nervous system, and how it actually is a powerful part of a woman's body and a portal of sorts, not just to bring life in the world, but also to help the woman understand herself and understand the world. And those are some of the teachings that we've really lost. We're understanding a little bit more about this with Tumelo Murera, a Botswana-based womb healer, and Mureri, who is a Botswana-based womb healer. And she's recently hosting a 7-part weekly email series on Setswana indigenous teachings and practices for pregnancy loss. Tumelo, tell me about the womb itself, right? And some of the practices that you've learned through your Setswana indigenous teachings and learnings. Why is it important to heal the womb, especially in a ritual that is associated with one of its most powerful, needs, right? Which is pregnancy and the portal of giving life, or choosing not to give life, or maybe not being able to give life full term. So let's speak about the womb itself. Why are some of these teachings very important? And where do you also learn these indigenous teachings on the womb?
Yeah, thank you so much, Palesa. Oh my God, like the womb is such a remarkable being. I'll say she's a being.
That's powerful.
So there's, it's so interesting because in our world, really, we don't really get any real education on our bodies, how to engage with our bodies and even our wombs, right, as a result. And so my own journey and my own learnings have led me to understand the womb as an alive being. Like she has a life of her own, right? And that person that you encountered on TikTok was very right in saying that the womb is a portal, just the mere fact that babies come through the womb, like, right? So we have different beliefs, but for me, the beliefs that I'm grounded in is such that we have the spirit or the soul of a child coming down, descending from the spiritual or the heavenly realms, right? Coming to occupy the body of the child, right? So this means that in our physical world, in our earth planet, we have wombs, we have women walking around these portals. It's like that doorways into the heavenly realms that facilitate that coming into the body of the spirit or the soul of a child. So the womb is such a powerful space that transcends the physical aspect of it, which is what we've only been taught about in our world. So for most of us growing up, we're just taught that it's the uterus, it's a body organ that is sitting in the lower parts of your body, but it's so much more than that. And it's so much more than just a creation. So it's a creation portal, and it's so much more than just for the creation of babies, right?
Yeah.
So for those who are aware of chakras, right? The 7 chakras, even though there are more in the body. So around the womb space, we have the sacral chakra, which governs matters of our emotions, matters of intimacy, matters of pleasure, right? And also matters of our sexuality extending to the root chakra, right? And so you'll find that the womb is responsible for so much more than just even birth, right? And yeah, and so it births not only babies, but it also births our very lives. Like when we're writing a book, we're birthing that through our womb space. When we are creating projects, when we're building organizations, we are birthing them through our womb space, right? And so coming back just to the bit on the womb being an alive being in her own right and having a life of her own. And then we consider pregnancy loss as like a painful experience that is actually a trauma, right? So given that the womb is alive, she's a being. When something as painful and traumatic as a pregnancy loss happens, it affects her. Like it's a pain that is felt by the womb herself. It's a trauma. It's a traumatic experience for the womb to have a death occur within her being, right?
Yeah.
And so the wisdom that the elders have shared with me is that in our Setswana tradition and in most indigenous traditions, like even going beyond our African continent, our elders used to have in place practices and protocols, right? That a woman would be supported through, that hold the appreciation of this being a big deal event in the life of the woman herself and in the life of the womb, right? So you might be able to imagine that, like, just experiencing pregnancy loss brings about so much, like it's a devastating experience. And so this woman is going to experience a lot of grief. It's a heartbreak. There's a lot of sadness. It might be a deeply disappointing experience because she was looking forward to birthing her child, right?
Yeah.
And so and that is just at the emotional level, right? Of facilitating healing for this woman at an emotional level to help her dissolve these emotions so that they don't impact other key areas of her life.
Yeah.
Right. And now just coming back to the womb space itself, So growing up, I used to know, even before I was a healer, right? I became a healer. I used to just know that there used to be cleanses that our elders used to do for women who had experienced loss.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you there because I do want to hear a little bit more about the actual practices a little later on. But we need to go to our news break. I want to hear about the practices, the indigenous practices of the Botswana women and people, and how they would go through this womb healing of a woman who's just experienced pregnancy loss. So we want to find out actually what really happens. We want to find out out who comes together, what do they do, what is the experience of womb healing, and how it benefits the woman and how it benefits her life moving forward, but also how it heals the womb space and the womb herself, as you put it out there.
It's so interesting because I think women are powerful at being within a being. How powerful are
it's
women?
Incredible.
And you're always carrying this being or this sense of self within you, and that's such a powerful way to actually see it. But right now, let's quickly move on and get our latest sports. We'll come back to this fascinating conversation with our guest later.
Sports on Channel Africa.
The African perspective.
Good morning, guys. We begin with tennis news. The Tunisian player Ons Jabeur slammed French Open organizers and broadcaster Amazon for sidelining women's matches from the coveted night sessions, with none featured at the clay court Grand Slam in almost 2 years. The last women's singles match to be played under the lights of Court Philippe Chatrier was a fourth-round encounter between Aryna Sabalenka and Sloane Stephens on the 4th of June 2023. The French Open has one evening match this year, starting not before 2015 local time, and in France is exclusively broadcast by Amazon's Prime service. Ons Jabeur has more.
Well, not for tennis, but for in general. And I hope whoever is making a decision, I don't think they have daughters, because I don't think they want to treat their daughters like this. It's a bit ironic, They don't show women's sport, they don't show women's tennis, and then they ask a question, but mostly they watch men. Of course they watch men more because you show men more, so everything goes together.
On to rugby news. One of South Africa's rugby's up-and-coming coaching talents and well-travelled playmakers has joined the Uganda national team support staff. Former Springbok and Vodacom Bulls fullback Zane Kishner has linked up with the Cranes of Uganda as a backs coach and will work closely with head coach Fred Muduola and assistants Leonard Lubambula, Timothy Muduola and Marvin Odongo. Kishner replaced Anton Mulman as head coach of the SWD Eagles in January 2024, having previously worked as an assistant coach at the Currie Cup First Division side, but recently parted ways with the Otinikwa base outfit after a disappointing South African Cup campaign. Now, football news. Mamelodi Sundowns are gearing up for the FIFA Club World Cup to be staged in the United States next month. This will be their second Club World Cup in the club's history after becoming the first African side to play in the event back in 2016. But there's a big hurdle the club is facing ahead of the FIFA Club World Cup. The Brazilians must first overcome Egyptian club Pyramids FC in the second leg of the CAF Champions League to be played in Cairo this coming Sunday. Chairperson Klopi Mutsepe says the aim as a club is to continue reaching for the stars.
An exciting day to announce a wonderful partnership, but it can be sometimes challenging to separate celebrating and concentrating, because of course we have a very, very important task to do this Sunday. But today was very important as well because it's a milestone moment in the club's history.
Only 3 players will be making a return to the FIFA Club World Cup for the second time. They are Sundowns captain Themba Zwane, utility player Thapelo Morena, and veteran goalkeeper Dennis Onyango. He says they have already shared valuable lessons learned in 2016 with the rest of the team.
Being the first South African club to be at the FIFA Club World Cup in Japan in 2016, and of course going back in 2025, it's amazing. And for me, it's a dream come true to be at the Club World Cup for the second time, and of course the first Ugandan to be at the Club World Cup, which is amazing. But very happy for the club because these are the targets that the club sets.
And finally, Royal Flames Netball Club from Eswatini won the Confederation of Southern African Netball Association Kosana tournament held in Windhoek in Namibia. They narrowly defeated Zimbabwe Defence Force 47-46 in the final, while Namibia secured the third place. Despite having several local teams in the competition and the home advantage, only the Namibia Correctional Services NCS advanced past the group stage. NCS claimed third place after beating Botswana Defence Force 41-27. NCS coach Salomon Taware said the tournament served as a learning experience for his team and will help them prepare for future matches. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom at channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fide Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Hello, Africa. We would love to hear your voice on our radio station. Be part of the fun and send a shout out or greeting message to your loved ones and your favorite Channel Africa presenters. Whether you're in Africa, the diaspora, or anywhere else around the globe, we want to hear your voice. Send your shout out message by sending an email to info@channelafrica.co.za or send them to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Help us diversify our sound with your voice. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Benjamin Mushatama and Palesa on the move.
Hey, we've been speaking about the womb, and we're going to go back to that particular conversation, especially when it comes to healing. But before we go back to it, let's get our latest business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin, and good morning. The International Monetary Fund says Egypt has made progress towards macroeconomic stability and has been streamlining tax and customs procedures, but still needs to widen its tax base. An IMF team visited Egypt earlier this month as part of its fifth review of an $8 billion financial support agreement signed in March 2024. Last week, Egypt's central bank said the economy grew by 4.3% in October to December quarter and projected it would grow by 5.0% in January to March. In West Africa, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu asked Parliament to approve more than $21.5 billion in foreign borrowing for its 2025-26 borrowing plan to plug financial shortfalls to boost growth. The new borrowing makes up around 60% of the total spending earmarked in the 2025 budget and marks a shift in the government plan to promote investment abroad to attract equity investors rather than debt to curtail rising debt costs. The 2025-26 borrowing plan will cover all sectors of the economy with specific emphasis on infrastructure, agriculture, health, and education. South Africa's 2024 General Household Survey reveals a continued rise in reliance on government support. The proportion of individuals receiving social grants grew from 12.8% in 2003 to 30.9 in 2019 and surged to 40.1 in 2024, largely due to the introduction of the special COVID-19 Social Relief of Distress Grant. Statistician General Risenga Maluleke presented the findings at a media briefing in Pretoria. Innocent Simusa has more.
The 2024 General Household Survey paints a revealing picture of South Africa's society. It shows that 42.4% of households are headed by females, with the highest proportion in rural areas, particularly in Eastern Cape, 48.8%, in KwaZulu-Natal, 46.8%. In contrast, female-headed households were least common in Gauteng at 37.3%.
South Africa's Communications Minister Solly Malatsi defended his proposed draft policy in Parliament on Tuesday. He says the proposals published for public comments last Friday are not only meant for Elon Musk's Starlink. The proposed changes to the current legislation could see the provision of a 30% local ownership of foreign-owned company removed or watered down in favor of a recognition of equity equivalence investment. Malatsi says the proposed changes are not in favor of any individual.
I'm pretty clear that transformation is sacrosanct in our country, that it's a non-negotiable in order for the country to achieve its aspirations, but most importantly, to live to the provisions of the BEE Act as it was articulated and envisaged. So we are not attempting to open a special dispensation for Starlink or any other company or an individual.
Meanwhile, Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni says Ramaphosa and Trump did not discuss Elon Musk's Starlink satellite-based internet service in their recent meeting at the White House. Ntshavheni says government started considering the introduction of satellite technologies, including low Earth orbit providers like Starlink, a long time ago.
What I need to clarify is that Starlink was not part of the discussions in the Oval Office or during the luncheon. And I've said it in the op-ed that I wrote about the trip itself to say, do we need transformation? Do we need to introduce low-orbit satellites in the country? Not only low-orbit satellites, but satellites in the country. And I said yes. And I'm the first minister in the country to request ICASA to undertake a market study of how to regulate the introduction of satellites in the country and what regulatory framework will be required.
Your financial indicators this morning: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira, 582 in Botswana, 13 pula 26. Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 39, Zambia 27 kwacha 20. BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 65, Russia 80 rubles 3, India 85 rupee 30, China 70 yuan 18, South Africa $1 is at 17 rand 89 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 88 to the euro. Taking a look at commodities, gold is at $3,304, platinum at $1,081 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil, $64.26 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email, newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations,
Peter talks to Dr. Thulisile Buddha,
an academic,
author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems.
Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era.
Dr. Thulisile unpacks the role of educators,
explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage.
You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za.
This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. No time to waste. Be on the move with Benjamin Mushatama and Palesa.
Well, this is a very interesting conversation, and it's always interesting to find out some of the indigenous practices of us as African people within the spaces of our different traditions and our different cultural values. It's always good to know some of the practices that we can still use today to heal ourselves, to grow, and to bring together community in indigenous ways. We're speaking about womb healing, and in particular, a 7-part weekly series by Setswana womb healer Tumelo Mureri, who speaks about the teachings and practices of pregnancy loss through these womb healing practices. Thank you for staying with us, Tumelo. Now let's get to the crux of the matter, right? We chatted a little bit about what womb healing is and, its necessity in pregnancy loss. But what actually happens? I know you can't give us, all, step by step. I'm sure that would take forever because these are things that take place, I think, over a couple of hours or days even perhaps. So give us a breakdown of what happens when a woman loses a baby, whether, knowingly or unknowingly. What happens? What exactly is the womb healing practice of pregnancy loss amongst the indigenous Tswana people?
Okay, thank you, Palesa. So the womb healing aspect is actually part of a broader protocol that is done for a woman, right? Okay. So in the Setswana tradition, a woman who had experienced pregnancy loss, we're using past tense because we don't practice these as much as we used to in olden days, right?
Yeah.
So in the Setswana tradition, a woman who had experienced pregnancy loss was believed to need a period of healing and recovery, right? And she would go into a period of confinement, just like a woman who had given birth to a live baby. So in my language, we call it butsetsi, right? That period of confinement. And she would be in confinement for a minimum of 3 months. And this could also be extended to 6 months. And so you've probably
by
heard
confinement,
of,
you mean like solitary confinement? That could mean different things, because it could feel like you're shunning the women from their community. What happens in that space of confinement?
So by confinement, we mean, another term for it is like being in a secluded space, like a nesting space for her postpartum care and recovery, right? So, yeah. So this, which she would be supported through, it's really a postpartum care period that is very similar to that which a woman who has given birth to a live baby would also be supported through, right? So elders of olden times were quite strict, right? And so the confinement was not because they believed something was wrong with the mother. It was really to protect her from the energies of the community. And where there was a baby, it was also to protect the baby from the energies of the community, right? And this is something that I believe is there, in various cultures around just on our African continent, right? And so, one, it is that. So she would go into that postpartum care period, right? Whose minimum duration was 3 months, and it could be extended to 6 months because it was believed she needed a period of healing and recovery.
Yeah.
And this was done regardless of how far along she might have been in the pregnancy. So whether she had been a few days into her pregnancy, whether she had been a few weeks or a few months, for our elders, it didn't matter. For them, my understanding is that for them, they considered conception to be the beginning of her motherhood journey. And there was a respect and an honoring and a reverence around this experience of loss and appreciation that she has lost a baby. Hence, they even call it a baby. It's not like a fetus. It's not conception matter, And so it was during this period of confinement, which we call butsetsi in Setswana. You might have a word for it in your language, right? It was during this period where elders were taking care of her that these practices would be facilitated for her. One of those care practices was womb healing, right? Key is they would facilitate like rituals, cleansing rituals for her womb So elders of olden times believe that like when a loss happened, it indicated that there might have been some debris in the womb space that might have resulted in the loss. So nobody could ever really know what had caused the loss, right? And so for them, then they would facilitate these cleanses with the intention to, purify the womb space, cleanse the womb space of whatever it is really, that might have resulted in the loss. And second, because really she was treated like a mother who had just birthed. There was an appreciation of pregnancy loss being a birth process, right? And so part of her care would be lying on her belly, like as she would be in confinement in her bedroom or in that secluded space. Like her default sitting position was lying on her belly, so to facilitate a return to position of her womb and of the organs that would have like moved from the original position during pregnancy, right?
Yeah.
She would also receive,
Yeah, we're running out of time, and there's so many things I feel like we should go to your ebook for to actually hear them, because you are citing them with such great description, and I feel like they're more elaborate in how they should be observed. Where should we go to actually get hold of the ebook, and where can people go to actually find out more about some of the work that you do?
Okay. I'm mostly active on Instagram. My handle is at Dumelo Mareri. And I also have a website, dumelomareri.com. This is where people can get a copy of the ebook that shares all this wisdom in detail, right?
Sure.
So the ebook is at dumelomareri.com/resources. That's where you will get it. And available on DM and email for those who might have any further questions or any thoughts that they'd love to share with me. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm seeing a very beautiful book that you have there on our live stream, 1,000 Splendid Suns. And that is by Khaled Husseini. I love that book, actually. I'm like, she's a great reader as well. She's got good taste in literature. But thank you so much for joining us. What's the name of the book again?
Of my ebook?
Yes, the name of your book.
Oh, it's Setswana Indigenous Teachings and Practices for Pregnancy Loss.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a nice, lovely conversation with you. Thank you for taking your time as well, for just relaying some of these descriptions and important steps, because we need to remind ourselves of what we've lost. That is Dumelo Morei, who is a Botswana-based womb healer. Let's take a break. We'll be back.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda
on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
A Mauritanian appeals court has this week handed down a 15-year prison sentence and a hefty $3 million fine to the country's former president Mohamed Ould Abdel Aziz for corruption, money laundering and illicit self-enrichment. The ruling upholds and escalates an earlier conviction from 2023, marking a significant moment in Mauritania's efforts to tackle high-level corruption.
In terms of the country fighting corruption, I think this case shows the seriousness of the country in trying to fight corruption. There is substantial evidence that indicates to the fact that indeed he was corrupt. These cases are always very difficult to then be able to balance whether they're not politically motivated and also balancing the rule of law.
Nyasha Mpani, who's a project leader at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation in South Africa.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda
on Rise and Shine.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628.
Benjamin Mushatama and Palesa
On the move.
Is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising.
Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9.
Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day.
At mid-morning,
we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people,
and the things that make Africa smile.
12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni.
Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m.
5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color.
Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba.
We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m.
Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9.
We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla.
And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines.
With Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa.
Across borders, across time zones.
On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising.
Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9.
Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people,
and the things that make Africa smile.
12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni.
Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m.
5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color.
Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba.
We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m.
Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9.
We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10, we take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla.
And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines.
With Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa.
Across borders, across time zones.
On air, online.
This is Channel Africa.
Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising.
Angola with one titled Mido. It's 57 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. Bali, as guys, definitely we can just watch and observe these things. And I think at a time when my partner was pregnant, I was kind of in awe. But when that was also happening, I knew I was kind of like powerless, because I kind of saw her experiencing this phenomenon that was happening through her body and through her. And I was like, wow, this thing is happening. But I don't think as men, we actually see in full the measure of that miracle.
100%. I think there's so many things that are lost when it comes to that particular miracle. And you know what? It is a miracle. It's a miracle on its own that, the mother gets to live through that experience, because I would say, and I think many women would agree, it is a life-threatening experience, but it's also a powerful experience of getting to know yourself and getting to understand the world, and just seeing something that is happening through you and to you that has a lot of power.
Yeah. And I think also the consideration at times is only for those who give birth, right? And to able-bodied human beings. At times we also don't understand that at times women can actually go through loss, and at times some women can give birth to disabled human beings, and at times there has to be a healing situation for semi-disappointment or at times a full disappointment.
Yeah, 100%. It's important to get a lot of support. And if it's not, through some of these teachings, we don't know a lot of these indigenous teachings because there are lost forms of art and there are lost teachings through, ages and ages of modernity. But even in modern ways, there are ways in which women can be supported. Some of these things are psychological, and psychological support is still important in this day and age to take the mother through that process. But also just being there and helping the woman get through pregnancy loss, which is, I'm pretty sure, one of the most devastating things that can happen to an individual.
Yeah, it's very easy to just kind of think women can just go through that and they'll just recover easily. But I know for some women, it's lifelong. And for some people, it's like a permanent thing that you always remember that particular loss. What do you think about, our rituals when it comes to pregnancies? Do you think we have captured them well, or do you think there's a lot of things that we've lost here on the African continent? Remember, text us on that WhatsApp number, +27 63406 9126. You can text us or voice note us there. Hey, we're moving into the second hour of the show. No, we're not getting out of there anytime soon. We still have 2 hours to go. Let's find out what's the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Top stories: a salvo at least 42 people shot dead in Nigeria's central Benue state, and SpaceX has launched its 9th Starship rocket from its base in Texas. Good morning, I'm Cholani Tulongwebe. At least 42 people have been shot dead by suspected herders in a series of weekend attacks across Gwe West District in Nigeria's central Benue state. 32 bodies were recovered from Sunday's assaults on the Aehume and Aundona villages, while 10 more were killed in a separate attack on the villages of Tiolaha and Te Ubiam on Saturday. Benue is in Nigeria's Middle Belt, a region where the majority Muslim north meets the largely Christian south. The region faces competition over land use, with conflicts between herders who seek grazing land for their cattle and farmers who need arable land for cultivation. These tensions are often worsened by overlapping ethnic and religious divisions. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says the country and the US have started diplomatic deliberations on a number of issues, including tariff increases that his counterpart Donald Trump has implemented. Ramaphosa says this follows his recent trip to the US. MPs of the Economic Freedom Fighters Umpile Mautwe asked Ramaphosa how the trip would benefit the country. Speaking in the National Assembly during the oral answer session yesterday, Ramaphosa defended the trip, saying he had accomplished his mission.
So we do believe that we achieved those objectives. The engagement with the American government has started. Soon after we left Washington, the engagement has now commenced, and there are discussions that are happening in relation to tariffs, in relation to investments, and we believe that we have reset the relationship despite what we could have seen on television. We were able to have a much more meaningful discussion and meeting with President Trump and his representatives during the quiet room where we had lunch together and had meaningful exchanges on a number of issues.
Deputy Representative for the United Nations Children's Fund in Mozambique has told Channel Africa that the number of children living in poverty survived on less than $1 a day. Yannick Brand says the sharp increase was first seen in June 2015 of the number of children living in monetary poverty. A recent report by UNICEF states that around 13 million children live in poverty, whether monetary, multidimensional, or both. Brand elaborates.
This report has the particularity to look beyond monetary poverty and look at the number of children that are deprived from their basic rights, from 8 categories that goes from having access to education, to safe water, to health services, for example, or even birth registration.
Namibia will today hold its first National Remembrance Day for more than 70,000 Africans that German colonial forces had massacred more than a century ago. The victims had been targeted because they had refused to let the colonizers take their land and cattle. The BBC's Elsa Orkney has the story.
For many years, Germany did not publicly acknowledge the genocide of the Overherero and Nama communities that took place between 1904 and 1908. But 4 years ago, Germany apologised for its role in the slaughter. Almost 40 years before their use in the Holocaust, concentration camps and pseudo-scientific experiments were used by German officials to torture and kill people in what was then called Southwest Africa. There'll be a national holiday and a minute's silence and candlelit vigil outside Parliament in Windhoek.
And finally, SpaceX has launched its 9th Starship rocket from its base in Texas, with the spacecraft progressing further than any previous test. Despite it being its greatest progress to date, the rocket encountered issues in orbit. The BBC's Peter Bowes has the details.
This was Starship's 9th test flight. The unmanned rocket launched successfully from Texas, but soon encountered problems in orbit, causing it to spin uncontrollably before its planned re-entry through Earth's atmosphere. The spacecraft experienced what SpaceX described as a rapid, unscheduled disassembly, meaning it broke apart before it could splash down in the Indian Ocean. In a post on X, the company said the test would help it improve Starship's reliability as it seeks to make life multiplanetary.
Recapping the top story this hour, at least 42 people have been shot dead by suspected herders in a series of weekend attacks across Gwe West District in Nigeria's central Benue state. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Hey, it's 5 minutes past 10 Central Africa time. You tuned in to On the Move with myself, Palesa Tau, and Benjamin Moshatama, coming to you live from the SABC studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. But we are where you are. Tap in if you've just joined us. Find us on channelafrica.co.za, on the SABC Plus app, and our audio bouquets, that's DSTV channel 802 and OpenView HD channel 628. Gender-based violence. It's a conversation we're having every other week, every month, simply because there is a real pandemic here in South Africa when it comes to gender-based violence. And every week, every month, we hear a new story of a woman that has been either sexually assaulted or that has been murdered. And sometimes we think, there are things that women should be able to do to avoid these circumstances. But the truth is, there aren't many situations that we can do to avoid these circumstances. And I don't know. I feel very indifferent about the conversation we're about to have. So we're going to be speaking about safety in dating. This is on the back of the latest news story just this week. A 30-year-old South African woman has been murdered. A 30-year-old South African woman has been murdered after going on a date. And she was found less than 2 hours after she was picked up by the person she was supposed to go on a date with, who is currently only known by the name of John. And less than 2 hours later, this young woman was found murdered and dumped on the side of the road. And we are speaking about some of the vital safety tips when it comes to dating, especially now. Online dating is obviously the most popular form of dating. It's easy, it's accessible, you can do it on your phone. But it has to transform from the digital space into in-person meetings. And absolutely, there are things that women can do and people can do to try and keep themselves safe. But this young woman was speaking about, 30-year-old Olerato, did absolutely each of those things. She sent her friends her location before the date. She told her friends that she was going on the date, and she told her friends that she would be sending her location every 30 minutes. And after her friends didn't get her location in that 2 hours sent to them, they followed up, looked for her location, found it, and then went to the location, only found in a house, and found her cell phone and some of her clothes. And just moments later, her body was found in another location close to that place where her body was dumped on the side of the road. So Olerato followed all these safety precautions that we're told to follow when going on a date with someone you're not familiar with. But her body was still found murdered.
And it seems like women are aware that it can be dangerous. Women are trying their best to protect themselves. So when you think about this 30-year-old, you have a sense that she did everything to actually mark signs for her to actually be in a more safe space, right? And that's the thing that people are saying on social media, that is it safe now to date people online because you never know what's going to actually happen to you. And it's very worrying, right? That, someone is just thinking of a lovely day, like, okay, I'm going out on a date. They're probably like joyous and happy about it, but something bad could happen to you. That's the reality in a violent country like South Africa, that you could actually find yourself in a situation where you're dead just because you wanted love. You just wanted a partner.
Yeah.
Maybe you wanted pleasure.
Which is a normal thing.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're just kind of going out there wanting a wonderful moment with someone, and it could be the worst 10 out of your life. So we'll speak about that and look at, how to go about it, vital safety tips to consider when transitioning from digital space or digital dating to person meetings. We'll be speaking to Ernest Ho, who is a dating coach and founder of Justified Connect Singles World. And honestly, we're not using this conversation to have a topic about something else. We are very sensitive about how brutal this death was, but also how it affects families, and also how rife gender-based violence is. And you know what? We've always been talking over the last few years. We've been doing this, and nothing has been done really.
Yeah.
Like, we just kind of keep talking. And I think the awareness appeal is kind of dead now. We need to move beyond that. There is an awareness that gender-based violence is happening. Women are trying their best to protect themselves. It's just men are not playing along. And we need to deal with this big crisis. So that's in that light that we're doing this conversation, not desensitizing the brutality of what actually happening. We're not talking about just dating and tips on dating because we're diminishing this huge, sad GBV moment. So we are sensitive in that light. Well, let's take a bit of a breather. We'll be back.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Protesters in Ghana have accused the country's president of violating the constitution and interfering in the independence of the judiciary. Eric Mawena Egbeta, the opposition protesters calling for the reinstatement of Tokonu.
The presidency and the president, spokespersons around the seat of government, have had one narrative and one narrative only, that no constitutional breaches have occurred in the process up until now, which has resulted in the suspension of the Chief Justice. In fact, it does appear the government has already communicated to these protesters that we're not interested in having the Chief Justice return and fill her position until the determination of the matter. We believe that she must remain suspended for the investigations to take place, after which the final determination will inform whether or not she returns.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Si vous êtes un artiste promoteur qui cherche à présenter sa musique à un public plus large ou qui cherche simplement à promouvoir sa musique à la radio, nous pouvons vous aider. Mais vous pouvez faire certaines choses pour augmenter vos chances de succès. Envoyez-nous votre musique à musique@channelafrica.co.za. Nous avons besoin des informations suivantes pour vous aider au mieux. Étiquetez code ISRC, titre, interprète, compositeur, éditeur, auteur, langue et genre. Écoutez votre chanson à la radio, la bande sonore parfaite pour votre journée. Avec Channel Africa et votre musique, vous ne vous ennuierez jamais, car nous jouerons votre musique. Découvrez le meilleur de la musique africaine avec Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. Keeping you on the know and on the move.
The past few weeks, the world has been debating a white genocide in South Africa. America opened its doors to quote-unquote white farmers. 49 of them went and landed in America, and the doors are still open to many others. But I think there is a real-time genocide that is happening in South Africa, and the genocide happening in South Africa is against women. There is a real-life genocide happening in South Africa against women.
Absolutely.
Women are dying
Yeah.
every hour, every minute at the hands of men in South Africa. Is the world going to open its doors to women who are seeking asylum out of South Africa through the genocide? Well, just this week, a 30-year-old woman, South African woman, by the name of Olerato was murdered after going on a date. Less than 2 hours after being picked up at her residence for this date, she was found thrown and murdered on the side of the road. I was scrolling once again through my TikTok, and a South African woman puts this post up and says, "These are the things that women should avoid doing to not get sexually assaulted or murdered in my country," that's South Africa. And these are some of the things that we as women should avoid doing to not get murdered or raped. Exercising, taking an Uber, going to meet up with friends, sending or picking up a package at your local post office, going on a date, falling in love, going to the police station, being at home, going to the hospital, going to church, going to school. And you know why this is? There are so many reports of South African women who've been murdered or raped at each and every one of these places.
Yeah, that's so sad just to think about that. And it's worrying, right? And we always have this conversation as if like we're trying to give awareness on the problem of GBV, but it's clear that we know that GBV is happening. It's just that we're not dealing with it as well as we should. And I think that's where the problem is. And just to hear the story of this lady is another sad theme, because, we've got sisters and family members who are the age and even younger than this girl. In fact, there's other stories of older women who are also being killed and raped in this country.
So we're having a conversation about the vital safety tips to consider when transitioning from online dating to meeting in person. And I do want to put out there that I'm very indifferent about a conversation like this, because sometimes it feels like these conversations are taking the GBV conversation and they're putting the responsibility on women to not find themselves in these positions, when the responsibility to not kill and to not rape should be on men, not to murder and not to rape women.
I agree completely.
But nonetheless, we have to have these conversations. Safety is important. And even though 30-year-old Olerato did all the safety tips that she could find to try and not be in the situation, she was nonetheless murdered this week. But we do have Ernest Toho on the line, dating coach and founder of Justified Connect Singles, because it is still important to speak about safety and to find ways, any way possible, to try and protect yourself, even though unfortunately it is not a guarantee in South Africa or anywhere in the world, if you are a woman, that you will be safe. Ernest, thank you so much for your time. I'm saying this because it's important to not try and water down the circumstances that we find ourselves in when it comes to gender-based violence, rape and murder that we're seeing all across the African continent, but of course in the capital of gender-based violence here in South Africa.
Yeah, good morning, guys. It's Benjamin and Palesa, right?
And Palesa.
And Palesa, sorry. Benjamin and Palesa Cow. I won't forget that. Good morning, guys. It's Ernest Toho here. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being on your show once again. Let me first off start by just sending my condolences, to the family of Olerato and her friends, South Africa in general, women as well, for what we see that has happened. It's uncalled for, despicable and regrettable. And then also hello to your viewers and listeners.
Thank you so much for that, Ernest. Well, let's speak about the dating realm, right? Of course, moving outside of the story of Olerato herself, online dating is one of the most popular forms of dating in the modern age. It's an easy way to connect with people, to find people online. And the truth is, a lot of people, if not everyone wants love. And so online dating is a great way to do that and to connect with people from many different spaces. But of course, a relationship, for a real relationship to happen, it has to move out from the online space and get into, the meeting in person space where you actually get to know someone. So we need to take a very quick break so we can get into the conversation and speak about some of these safety tips. And not all safety tips have to do obviously with the rape or murder, but just how to protect yourself in a space where you are meeting with complete strangers that you've met online. We know that the online space can be tricky and can be dangerous for a lot of people. So let's go to that break, Ernest. It's going to be really quick, and then we'll come back to you to unpack these safety tips. It's almost 20 minutes past 10 Central Africa time. What are some of the tips that you implement in your life when you are online dating? Let us know. We are live on Facebook and on Instagram as well as on YouTube.
Africa in Business
on Channel Africa.
The president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, BADEA, Dr. Sidi Ould Tah, he is vying for the presidency of the African Development Bank, the AFDB. He positions himself as a fervent defender of economic integration and structural transformation on the African continent.
So I do believe that I have a 360 view of the development challenges in the continent with my experience from both the supply side and the demand side. But more importantly, my vision is to bring on board all the stakeholders and to have a holistic approach for the development of the continent and to develop partnership across the continent and outside the continent, bringing all the stakeholders together to work for one goal is to make Africa great for life and livelihood of the African population.
Bringing the African markets into your home.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet.
Channel 802.
We are up. We are ready. We are on the move with Palesa Tawo and Benjamin Mushatama
on Channel Africa.
21 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. Palesa was right. It just shouldn't be the responsibility of women to take on these kind of actions so they can protect themselves. It's up to us as men as well to make sure that not that women are protected. We don't need to protect women if there are no wolves out there, right? But just to leave women alone. Can we just leave them alone and just let them live and be alive and live in a world where they feel valued and protected, not by us men, but just by being in a safe environment? Because sometimes we feel we need to protect them, but we don't need to in a society where there is no killings and murders and rapes. So we need to just be responsible and men and own up to these serious crimes against women. But unfortunately, we have to speak about the safety tips, especially from transitioning from not just as women but as men. So we neutralize the conversation in terms of moving from that digital space to in-person meetings. Ernest Toho is a dating coach and founder of Justified Connect Singles World. It's great to have you back on the show, Ernest. Let's talk a little bit about it, because the thing about online dating, it's kind of has a pure intention, right? Even if it's the intention is just about I need to meet someone. Initially, you think you're going to have a great experience there, and you probably are very positive about what you think is going to happen online.
Yes, thank you very much, Benjamin. You actually hit the nail on the head. First off, it is sad that we have to now put, women at the center of this, making them responsible for their own safety. That's not what it should be. And men need to, take responsibility as well and do the needful, quite unfortunately. However, there's so much going on at the moment. As much as South Africa is emotional about the passing of Olerato, which we should be, there's a bigger conversation. I know this particular session of this show is restricted, so to say, to online dating and the transition to offline, as the case may be. But there's a bigger conversation because it's not really solely about online dating. There's traditional dating, which also, we find these crimes happening. And then we have these crimes happening also beyond dating, just kidnapping and murder and all that. So it begs for a clear conversation in the society, and that's where government comes in. There's no better time at the moment for government and all these political parties to enact laws that will protect women. Having said all of that, I was having a conversation once I got this invite yesterday with a friend, and one key question came up. And the question was, Ernest, what are you going to say that hasn't been said? What is new? Because we keep listing out all these safety tips, do a background check, do a video call, go in your own vehicle, meet at a public place, and all those, about 10, 12, there can even be 20 of them. But one message came to me, which is, and also it's tempting to put all the burden on women and say, no, you have to do 1, 2, 3. You shouldn't be there. Why were you there? Why didn't you go in your own car? But it makes it very tricky. But one new point I'll share is that, or two. One, especially for women, because now the spotlight's on women. Go in your own transport. I mentioned that some time ago about one of the tips. Go in your own transport. Be responsible for your transportation, and then also while you're at that, make sure you're comfortable. Feel safe. Not just feeling safe. Be in control of your safety. The moment you lose control, it puts you in harm's way. And these are things we need to look at. So there's the online transition to offline, there's traditional, then there's the bigger society, there's government. All the parties need to come together. Because saying that men should take responsibility, don't hurt people, don't kidnap, don't kill them, it's like saying don't commit fraud. While the banks and all these financial institutions will put measures in place to secure their customers, finances and money and all that, the government clamps down on fraudsters and put all the safety nets to catch these people together. So there's a very, very high requirement and need for government to step into this matter and establish new, fresh laws that have zero tolerance to GBV, zero tolerance to oppression, kidnapping, and all these things, because it's a mess.
Yeah,
it's a mess.
It's very messy, right? And I actually think that advice is very important, right? Use your own transportation, right? But it's so easy to say that, right? Because I can just hear a young girl listening to us right now and say, actually, I want to go to this date, but this guy needs to Uber me there. I don't have the money. No, I'm being practical. Literally, I'm being kind of what actually happens, like I'm just being like, I want to meet this guy. Dude, Uber me, wherever we meet, it's fine. You make the choice. I just want to meet you, such a nice guy. And at times, those are the situations where people are just charmed by this other person and they would do whatever it takes just to experience time with someone else. And, those things do happen where people don't have the resources to just be in their own car. There's young girls that are dating in their 20s that need a lift to go to a date.
And we also can't say that dating itself is only for those who can afford a car or afford an Uber.
Yeah.
Love is not just for those who have the money to receive love.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Benjamin, you're a dangerous man. The way you put all this together. Out there.
Yeah, because we have been online dating. Our partners, we found them on Tinder, man. So we know how these things work.
I'm laughing the most. The friend of mine I was having a chat with last night to say, look, here's what's going on. And then we're having this prep. And she was like, Ernest, I know you. Don't now go, put pressure and talk about people wanting stuff like we say in South Africa, we like things, which is what you're alluding to. We like things. And there's no harm or crime in it. I mean, in a more, safe environment and decent environment, it's okay. Pursue love and whatever benefits come from it, go for it. But having said what you said, it is true, And another point, someone I've read comments on social media said, no, we're not dating anymore. No more dating. We're not going to first meet, second meet is done. We're good. There's a need. No one should be alone. There's a need to find love. There's a need to pursue romance and marriage and kids and family and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, it's like driving a car. You can't say, no, we're not going to drive cars anymore because there are accidents out there, people die. But of course, it begs for you to put on your seatbelt, do all the needful at the most that you can. You're only human. But also, sorry, before I let this go, it's important, the point I mentioned earlier, because I'm trying to drive your listeners and the general public to a certain particular point in this interview. Not losing control of your control for your safety. What do I mean? The moment you shift from the more self-reliant or self-protective angle to lighting things and, I need to jump into his car. I need to go and have this power lunch in Rosebank. I need. You're gradually watering down your control of safety. And this is where we have a big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I think we are actually touching this conversation in the way that it should be. I like the tone of this conversation. I'll tell you why, Ernest. It's because we are not telling people 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You do this and then you won't get harmed. Because I think that's where sometimes the problems is. It's like if I send a message to my friends and I tell them I'm in this car, and if I send them a link to this Uber driver, nothing will happen to me. But we know that those things are not always things that actually are helpful. I'm going to keep you there on the line, and then we'll see if we can wrap it up in a way that is, going to come with a conclusion. Because I think we're still very kind of vague right now in coming up with solutions. But I think the vagueness is important because the dangers out there are as vague as this conversation is, because you never know when and how this is going to happen when something bad happens to you. Stay there on the line, Ernest. We'll wrap things up after our business and sports news. But right now, let's go to our sports, and then we'll come back to this very difficult conversation on how to actually meet someone offline when you've established a connection online. It's a difficult one because we've come up with so many things, as Ernest has said, but they didn't really work because these guys who know how to do this are actually intelligent people and they are monsters. And in the way that they do this, they're aware of all these tips that we're always giving people. So we'll continue the conversation after our sports and business. For now, let's find out what's happening in the sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Let's kick off with football news. South African football commentator Gloria Brown is optimistic the Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON reigning champions Banyana will perform well at a highly anticipated continental spectacle taking place in Morocco from the 5th to the 26th of July. Brown believes Banyana coach Desiree Ellis has the right strength for this big assignment and urges football stakeholders to encourage players to see each other's value.
Let's not make the players fight against each other. They must see the value of one another and the support that we expect them to go into that camp. Because remember, coach can only play 11 at that moment in time. The others on the bench are equally important, but you just got 11 on the field. So we've got to build everyone around there, and I think we'll do well. And more so for coach. Is a strength, and I know you have it.
Former national team goalkeeper Brown says during the days when Bafana struggled to qualify for continental and international tournaments, the country was going through depression, and it was Banyana that brought the smiles back.
I think that has allowed the game to get your players like your Modises, your Veronica Pewas, your Figueles to go out there and still shine and express yourself. And I think it is the one thing that continues to wow the crowd, to let you start believing, hey man, there's something happening in women's football. We've acquired a whole lot of support through that in times of difficulty. When the country was really going through depression, it was Banyana that brought the smiles back.
Now, tennis news. Tunisian player Ons Jabeur slammed French Open organizers and broadcaster Amazon for sidelining women's matches from the coveted night sessions, with one featured at the clay court Grand Slam in almost 2 years. The last women's singles match to be played under the lights of court Philippe Chatrier was a fourth-round encounter between Aryna Sabalenka and Sloane Stephens on the 4th of June 2023. The French Open has one evening match this year, starting not before 2015 local time, and in France is exclusively broadcast by Amazon's Prime service. Ons Jabeur has more.
Well, not for tennis, but for in general. And I hope whoever is making a decision, I don't think they have daughters, because I don't think they want to treat their daughters like this. It's a bit ironic, They don't show women's sport, they don't show women's tennis, and then they ask a question, yeah, but mostly they watch men. Of course they watch men more because you show men more, so everything goes together.
Rugby news. One of South Africa's rugby's up-and-coming coaching talents and well-travelled playmakers has joined the Uganda national team support staff. Former Springbok and Vodacom Bulls fullback Zane Kishner has linked up with the Uganda's Cranes as a backs coach and will work closely with head coach Fred Muduola and assistants Leonard Lubambula, Timothy Muduola and Marvin Odongo. Kishner replaced Anton Mullman as head coach of the SWD Eagles in January 2024, having previously worked as an assistant coach at the Currie Cup First Division side, but recently parted ways with the Otinikwa-based outfit after a disappointing South African campaign cup. And Royal Flames Netball Club from Eswatini won the Confederations of Southern African Netball Association Kosana tournament held in Windhoek in Namibia. They narrowly defeated Zimbabwe Defence Force 47-46 in the final, while Namibia secured third place. Despite having several local teams in the competition and the home advantage, only the Namibia Correctional Services advanced past the group stages. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport. With me, Fikile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. It's Channel Africa's birthday month. Happy birthday! Celebrate Africa's voice with us. Catch us on SABC Plus, DSTV Audio Bouquet 802 and Satellite Channel PAS 10.
All right, it's time for us to get our business update.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin and Palesa. Good morning. Emirates Global Aluminium subsidiary in Guinea has accumulated a stockpile of nearly 2 million metric tons of bauxite since the suspension of its operations last year. The subsidiary, which is equally owned by Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund, Mubadala, and Dubai Sovereign Wealth Fund and Investment Corporation of Dubai, operates one of the largest bauxite mines in Guinea through its Guinea Alumina Corporation subsidiary. The standoff with Guinea's government highlights the aggressive push by the military authorities to increase benefits from the country's vast natural resources. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu asked Parliament to approve more than $21.5 billion in foreign borrowing for its 2025-26 borrowing plan to plug financial shortfalls to boost growth. The new borrowing makes up around 60% of the total spending earmarked in the 2025 budget and marks a shift in the government plan to promote investment abroad to attract equity investors rather than debt to curtail rising debt costs. The 2025-26 borrowing plan will cover all sectors of the economy with specific emphasis on infrastructure, agriculture, health and education. South Africa's Communications Minister Solly Malatsi defended his proposed draft policy in Parliament. Yesterday, he says the proposals published for public comments last Friday are not only meant for Elon Musk's Starlink. The proposed changes to the current legislation could see the provision of a 30% local ownership of foreign-owned company removed or watered down in favor of a recognition of equity equivalence investment. Malatsi says the proposed changes are not in favor of any individual.
I'm pretty clear that transformation is sacrosanct in our country, that it's a non-negotiable in order for the country to achieve its aspirations, but most importantly, to live to the provisions of the BBEE Act as it was articulated and envisaged. So we are not attempting to open a special dispensation for Starlink or any other company or an individual.
Meanwhile, Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, says Ramaphosa and Trump did not discuss Elon Musk's Starlink satellite-based internet service in their recent meeting at the White House. Ntshavheni says government started considering the introduction of satellite technologies, including low Earth orbit providers like Starlink, a long time ago.
What I need to clarify is that Starlink was not part of the discussions in the Oval Office or during the luncheon. And I've said it in the op-ed that I wrote about the trip itself, to say, do we need transformation? Do we need to introduce low-orbit satellites in the country? Not only low-orbit satellites, but satellites in the country. And I said yes. And I'm the first minister in the country to request ICASA to undertake a market study of how we're going to regulate the introduction of satellites in the country and what regulatory framework will be required.
In other news, the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi, says consumers should not bear the brunt of steep taxes while corporates enjoy huge profit without adequate contribution to the developmental agenda. He has also condemned National Treasury's proposed fuel levy increase, saying it will further burden struggling workers. He was speaking at the International Tax Reform Summit in Sandton, Johannesburg, yesterday.
There would have been such a hullabaloo about the VAT, but there is no hullabaloo about the 16-cent increase on the fuel levy, as if it is exactly not the same. The poor, the working class, spend up to 60% of their income on transport and food.
Your financial indicators this hour: $1 in Nigeria is at 1,000 naira 582, in Botswana 13 pula 26, Kenya the dollar is at 128 shilling 39, Zambia 27 kwacha 20, BRICS countries $1 in Brazil 5 real 65, Russia 3, India 85 rupee 30, China 71 18, South Africa $1 is at 17 rand 89 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 88 to the euro. Commodities: gold is at $3,310, platinum at $1,089 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil $64.43 a barrel. That is all. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Celebrate unity, progress, and pride. With Channel Africa, this Africa Month.
Nowhere be like Africa, nowhere be like home.
Listen in on SABC Plus, DSTV Audio Bouquet 802, and Satellite Channel PAS 10. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Benjamin Mushatama and Palesa on the move.
All right, we still have Ernest Toho on the line, dating coach and founder of Justified Connect Singles. And we're supposed to be having a conversation about the vital safety tips to consider when transitioning from digital dating to meeting in person. But I love the direction that our conversation has taken, because there is no watered down version of safety tips or things that women can do to keep safe when dating, because the experience of the woman, especially here in South Africa, is that danger can be anywhere, no matter how safe you try to be. And in fact, speaking about the case study of Olerato, a 30-year-old woman that has been murdered this very week here in South Africa after going on a date. She followed the protocol of what safety tips should be.
She did everything right.
And sending your location ends up just being a location of where your body can be found instead of you actually being safe. So I'm glad that even in the conversation that we've been having with Ernest, we are keeping in consideration that there isn't much that a woman can do to keep safe. If we say, instead of being picked up by a man, rather take an Uber, but the Uber driver may rape or murder you on your way to your date. So there aren't any ways to be safe, but it's a conversation that we need to put in perspective, because we cannot say women should not live life, or women should not want love or seek a normal and ordinary experiences simply because we live in an unsafe environment.
That's true. So I love that fact that, Ernest took it there, because it helps us just seeing how alert we should be in our environments. Ernest, I mean, it's a difficult one because it's not a typical, these are the lists, because we can give people the lists, but sometimes those lists are not good enough. What's your take about where this conversation is now? Because I don't even know what question to ask you, because I think I just want to hear your opinion about where we are now in this conversation.
Thank you very much, Palesa, and thank you very much, Benjamin, as well. I'm going to do a little rundown now just to be able to give benefits to your viewers and listeners. There's a reason why when a police stops a driver under whatever circumstance, first thing they ask you, where's your license?
Mm-hmm.
Now, without the license, it really doesn't matter how much seatbelt you put on and how much safety tips you took care of as a driver. You need to know how to drive. Now, when it comes to dating, we're not expecting anyone to receive any certificate to say, okay, now go ahead and date. But then people need to know how to date and how to go about the whole business of dating. This is why, to help, honestly speaking, to your viewers and the larger society at large, I've organized my masterclass, dating masterclass. It's called 6 Steps Dating Life Reset Masterclass. You can get on my website, nsto.com. Now, the reason why I mentioned this is, in the classes that I've had, it's amazing how shallow-minded people are when it comes to dating. Mm-hmm. And I want to leave your viewers and the general public with this point. Now, there's a way to date and a way not to date. One of the major nuggets I'll drop here. I always do. I don't know if I've done this in the other shows, but I call it the Limpopo analogy. If you're traveling to Limpopo from Johannesburg, you're leaving for Limpopo, you're taking off from Johannesburg. If you call a friend or family and say, look, I had an accident or a flat tire at Bela Bela or Mokopane, it makes sense. But if you leave Johannesburg going to Limpopo and you call to say you had a flat tire or an accident in Bloemfontein, it's crazy. How did you end up in Bloemfontein? So point being, individuals out there, single people who are going to dating, whether it's dating app or traditional dating, focus on your vision. In the first place, you now need to know your vision. What's your objective? What are you trying to do? Why are you dating? Focus on that, which means the person that you're talking to, once they veer off that track, which means they're not heading to Limpopo, they're heading to Cape Town, we're done. It doesn't matter how good you are, how tall you are, how handsome you are, we're not going the same direction. This is a very good step on how to cut down on the noise and filter out, the time wasters and all that. It's very important.
Yeah.
And
so, I like that advice, because at times we are actually veered away from our true intention on why we are on a dating site. At times then it becomes about the glitz and glamour. Hey, let's go for a date. I know this wonderful restaurant. Hey, I can buy you this and that. But you're not there for that. I know some people are, of course, some people are there for going to restaurants and getting lovely meals and one dates. But, the thing is, that can actually cause you harm if you are there for these frivolous reasons, because that's how people get drawn to the wrong characters, isn't it, Ernest?
Absolutely. Benjamin, you hit the nail on the head right there. I'm happy all this is coming from you, so I'm not going to be held responsible. Honestly speaking, because, it must be said, first of all, guys out there, single people, this society at the moment, until it changes, is very, very cruel. It's very dangerous. So be very careful. But you can only do so much, Pray about going out, coming in, your ancestors, whatever you believe in. But you see, one very important point, like you said, I think it's high time, which is what you're saying, Benjamin, that young men, young women, it doesn't matter, even 65-year-olds are dating, but anyone who's in the dating space, stick to your core, objective for dating. And more than anything, I think it's high time, women particularly, scale down, on the shining objects, the low-hanging fruits. It's amazing. People just want to. Some people are not even on dating site, not even with any intention to date. They just want to line up men throughout the week, to go out to Rosebank, Santon, have this super long, take pictures for Instagram and all that. We need to begin to cut down on that. On a first date, please make it simple. Keep it short. Let it be a meet and greet. You're just there to confirm whatever you've heard on the internet. Before you meet a person, do a video call. Be sure that the person matches. And then have a conversation about
no sleepovers on the first night.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Benjamin. I tell you're dangerous. I don't know. So, honestly speaking, to be honest, you're right on the money, Benjamin. The sleepovers on the same night, it happens, and you can get away with it. But for the bigger society, cut down on things like that. Go with your own transport. Cut down on the spending. If possible, if it goes beyond coffee and croissant and all that, if there's a chance you came in from work or wherever, you're very hungry, pay for your own food. Little things like this and nuances help us to keep, things in check. But most importantly, people need to learn how to date. I'm telling you, even something as simple as you on your own at home, identifying your ideal partner. People are not doing that. And you get out there and everything that looks like my bishop would say, if you don't know where you're going, everywhere will look like it. Yeah. You need to know where you're going. Then it doesn't matter how shiny the object is on the other side. Say, thank you very much, but I pass.
Yeah.
And this are across board. Even if you're going for what you call a hookup, or you're a professional escort, keep it professional. Stick to what you're there to do.
Okay, Ernest, we have to leave it there. We've run out of time. Ernest, where can people find you and find out more about some of the services you provide?
Thank you very much, Benjamin. It's Ernesto again. You can get me on ernesto.com. Please go to my website. Sign up. It's free, absolutely free. I'm not charging anything at this moment. Sign up for my 6 steps dating life reset masterclass, and I'll teach you how to date. Teach you how to go about, even identifying your ideal partner, your deal breakers and personal preferences. My email address is ernest@ernesttoho.com. You get me across all social media platforms at Ernesto. But go to my website, ernesttoho.com, and then we can have a conversation. Thank you so much, guys.
Hey, Ernest, I think you're going to be an on-the-move regular, so we always love having conversations with you. Thank you for joining us. That is Ernest Toho, a dating coach and founder of Justified Connect Singles World. We'll speak about this because I can see Bali has a few thoughts about those few final statements. Her face is always speaking. So I want to hear what she thinks about those final assertions that we just had with Ernest Toho on this conversation of digital space to in-person meetings. Let's take a break. We'll be back.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix. Uzuri na ukubwa wa kazi yako unatokana na nini?
Kwanza kabisa ni kujifunza vitu mbalimbali, lakini pia kuvaa uhalisia wa jamii kile inachopitia, kujifunza vitu vipya, lakini pia kufanya mazoezi na kumshirikisha Mungu katika career yangu ya muziki.
Bila shaka. Je, management na wadhamini vile vile wana nafasi kubwa au wana nafasi gani katika mafanikio yako kikazi?
Niseme labda wana 99% katika mafanikio ya muziki wangu, management au mabosi wangu.
Umewahi pia kupokea salamu za pongezi au ukosoaji kuhusiana na muziki wako?
Nilishapokea nyingi sana kutoka sehemu mbalimbali, DRC, Tanzania na East Africa nzima kwa jumla.
Tuzungumzie kuhusu ukosoaji sasa. Unajisikia pale unapokosolewa?
Najisikia vizuri sana. Unajua usipokosolewa ina maana wewe sio binadamu wa kawaida, kwa sababu asiyekosolewa pekee ni Mungu.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Call us on +27 63 406 9126
I can see my whole world changing.
and call contribute to the conversation. On the Move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday. Only on Channel Africa. Hashtag On the Move. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique, with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique, with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6.
It doesn't get old, man. That beautiful, beautiful song by Asha, Fire on the Mountain, Bukola Elemide. That is her name before she turned professional. Asha is a French-Nigerian singer and songwriter. And I see she was performing on the African continent very recently to a filled stadium. So she's not just based in Europe. She comes to the continent now and then, which is fantastic to see. So let's hear from Bali. You were rolling your eyes a little bit there while me and Ernest were talking, because, you know, man, we have our own way of seeing these things. And you were like, there they go again. Baqalile.
I think, yeah, and by my Baqalile isn't like you guys. There there you go. They're taking a sharp left turn. Let me let them do it to themselves. I think it's because there are a lot of misconceptions about some of the things that result in causing harm, and some of those things are really rooted in misogynistic ways in which we see dating and we see women, right? Stay away from the expensive dates. Don't have sleepovers on the first day. Ulerato didn't have a sleepover and she was found dead less than 2 hours.
Yeah, you're right.
Less than 2 hours, right? There are things that you can say, because here's the thing. Women are allowed to want certain things. Women are allowed to want to have a sleepover on the first date. If a woman meets a guy that she is sexually attracted to and they're sexually attracted to one another, if he can feel that way, it's okay for her to want to feel that way because she is a human at heart, right?
Yeah, we never say that to each other's guys. No
right.
sleepover.
Yeah.
Just stay away.
Nobody ever says to me, because that is a concept that is rooted in misogyny, that women are either devalued through the act of sex, whether it's on the first date or the second or the 5th or the 10th, right?
Or there's a justification,
for them to get killed
if they go for a sleepover.
Right.
Yeah.
There is no justification for any woman to get killed, whether or not she goes on a cheap date or an expensive date, whether she goes on a sleepover or not,
or a coffee or a dinner.
Because sometimes you don't even get to that coffee or that dinner before a rape or sexual assault or a murder takes place. And those are the things that we need to root out of the conversations, because they feel like a justification towards harm for women.
Point
and
taken.
There is
Very
no justification towards harming women. It's not women that have the responsibility to be safe. It's the men that have the responsibility. Do not kill, do not rape, do not sexually assault other people. Just be a normal human being.
Amen to that. What's your take on this one? It's a difficult conversation indeed, actually a very painful one when you consider the situation in South Africa with high levels, actually extreme levels of gender-based violence. Do you think it's on the onus for women to make themselves feel safe when going on a date, from an online date to an off date, or do you think the society in general is responsible for that? Give us your thoughts on +27 63 406 9126. You can text us or voice note us there. It's 1100 hours Central African time. Let's get the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Top stories: Asawa, at least 42 people shot dead in Nigeria's central Benue state, and the US says it is assessing the future of its military command for Africa. Good morning, I'm Cholani Tulongwebe. At least 42 people have been shot dead by suspected herders in a series of weekend attacks across Gwe West District in Nigeria's central Benue state. 32 bodies were recovered from Sunday's assaults on the Ehume and Aundona villages, while 10 more were killed in a separate attack on the villages of Kyalaha and Tseubiam on Saturday. Benue is in Nigeria's Middle Belt, a region where the majority Muslim north meets the largely Christian south. The region faces competition over land use, with conflicts between herders who seek grazing land for their cattle, and farmers who need arable land for cultivation. These tensions are often worsened by overlapping ethnic and religious divisions. Deputy Representative for the United Nations Children's Fund in Mozambique has told Channel Africa that the number of children living in poverty survived on less than $1 a day. Yannick Brand says the sharp increase was first seen in June 2015 of the number of children living in monetary poverty. A recent report by UNICEF states that around 13 million children live in poverty, whether monetary, multidimensional or both. Brand elaborates.
This report has the particularity to look beyond monetary poverty and look at the number of children that are deprived from their basic rights, from 8 categories that goes from having access to education, to safe water, to health services, for example, or even birth registration.
Namibia will today hold its first National Remembrance Day for more than 70,000 Africans that German colonial forces had massacred more than a century ago. The victims had been targeted because they had refused to let colonizers take their land and cattle. The BBC's Elsa Orkney has more.
For many years, Germany did not publicly acknowledge the genocide of the Over-Herero and Nama communities that took place between 1904 and 1908. But 4 years ago, Germany apologised for its role in the slaughter. Almost 40 years before their use in the Holocaust, concentration camps and pseudo-scientific experiments were used by German officials to torture and kill people in what was then called Southwest Africa. There'll be a national holiday and a minute's silence and candlelit vigil outside Parliament in Windhoek.
And finally, SpaceX has launched its 9th Starship rocket from its base in Texas, with the spacecraft progressing further than any previous test. Despite it being its greatest progress to date, the rocket encountered issues in orbit. The BBC's Peter Bowes has the details.
This was Starship's 9th test flight. The unmanned rocket launched successfully from Texas, but soon encountered problems in orbit, causing it to spin uncontrollably before its planned re-entry through Earth's atmosphere. The spacecraft experienced what SpaceX described as a rapid, unscheduled disassembly, meaning it broke apart before it could splash down in the Indian Ocean. In a post on X, the company said the test would help it improve Starship's reliability as it seeks to make life multiplanetary.
Recapping the top story this hour, at least 42 people have been shot dead by suspected herders in a series of weekend attacks across Gwe West District in Nigeria's central Benue state. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
5 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. We've been having some very, very powerful conversations today. If you've just joined us, where have you been? You've missed out on some fantastic conversations indeed. Not fantastic because they are easy subject matters. You know, sometimes we speak about things because they're easy. Let's just talk about this because it's easy. Like today, we're just talking about on air about this online dating thing, you know. When we were prepping this, we didn't know the conversation would actually turn out saying, actually, there is no way that women can feel safe.
Yeah.
They can try to do all these tips.
There are no safety tips.
There are no safety tips because all the safety tips have been overutilized to a point where, you know, even when women use them, they work against them.
Yeah. So even the safety tips, you might still end up in the same situation.
Sure.
Even if you follow word for word what these safety tips are. So there are no safety tips, but it's important to then appeal to the broader conversation. You know, that this lends itself to.
Yeah, it's very difficult to have these conversations, but we have to have them, the difficult ones indeed. Well, it's time for us to actually preview what's coming up on the show. We're going to look at our wonderful feature called Live Well. This is when we look at how to actually maintain your health care. It's an important thing. You know, you can't wait until you get really, really bad and then you like, now I can see what I must do. Let me go find, a recipe of this and that and then make sure that I feel better. Living well is really about your everyday choices. Your life choices are very important. I was just in hospital for a very serious condition recently, and I was next to this guy who became my friend. And the nurses were like, you again? You are back. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm back. But you were just here last week. We told you not to smoke. We told you to stop drinking. No, man, these things happen. So Live Well, we're trying to turn that around and say, let's try each day to make the responsible choice. And just to change those small little habits is a good start. We're not saying, perfect it all, because we're also humans. We can't always get it right. But Live Well is where we try just to make that better health decision. Well, today, the 28th of May, is World Blood Cancer Day, and we draw particular attention to patient aftercare. For many African blood cancer patients, the greatest risk comes after the transplant, when they return home to living conditions, and at times they have to also regulate their new condition, because after you get a blood transplant, you have to manage that transplant process in itself. We were talking about this. I thought when you get a transplant or a blood transplant, it's okay, it's done. You better. You're okay.
You've got the right blood now.
Yeah.
Go ahead and live your life.
Live your life, what was that song by T.I.? Live your life. Oh. No, it's not like that. You actually have to take care of yourself.
Isn't it Rihanna?
Yeah, but he had T.I. on the song.
Oh, okay.
It was actually T.I. featuring Rihanna.
I thought it was just Rihanna. Because Rihanna's so amazing.
Yeah, she is. But when last did she release an album?
She's never going to release again.
Yeah, but I mean, T.I., when last have we heard from him? But anyway,
we digress.
Let's talk a little bit about this. So we're going to be looking at World Blood Cancer Day, because blood transplants are a real thing. What do you do after that blood transplant? How do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, I don't know how observant you are, Benji, but as I was walking in the building this morning here at the SABC, when you walk in from the foyer, there's actually various posters in different places. I saw one at the main foyer and one just around the elevators. A young boy who's been put up in the poster, his name is DK, and he needs stem cell transplant. So there are some awareness campaigns currently taking place here in our SABC building for people to donate stem cells.
Okay, cool. And is there a difference between donating blood and stem cells?
So you donate the blood, but for blood cancer patients, they remove your stem cells. So what you're actually donating are stem cells, not blood. And what is being transplanted into a blood cancer patients are your stem cells.
See, knowledgeable.
Yeah.
The wise one.
It's 11:10 Central Africa time. We're going into that conversation. We're going to learn a few things. Ben and I learn every day, and hopefully you're on this learning journey with us. Find us and on our live streams on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Channel Africa 1. We're also on X. Use our hashtag On The Move, and let's hear your voice, man. We'd love to hear from you on +27 63406 9126.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Révérend Dr Alain.
Je suis content, très heureux d'être de la partie ce soir et bonjour à tous nos auditeurs.
Je rappelle que pour les intimes, il vous appelle bien sûr BMB. Aujourd'hui, nous parlons courage sur Mix Vibration. Comment définissez-vous le terme courageux?
Ça vient du latin cor, qui veut tout simplement exprimer la bravoure, la force de l'âme ou encore la virilité, le héroïsme que quelqu'un peut avoir en face de difficultés, en face de problèmes, en face de défis.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel. Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et votre 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Benjamin Mushatama and Palesa on the move.
All right, today is World Blood Cancer Day, and it's the 28th of May, and we draw special attention to patient aftercare. You know, when you go through a particular procedure, at times you're like, I'm done. Everything is cool. everything was successful. But not that, you still need to regulate to a different environment and make sure that you still take care of yourself. And we know that blood, donations happen all the time, and many times blood cancer patients are the ones at great risk, especially after a transplant. When they return home, at times they find themselves in unsafe, overcrowded living conditions, but also do they still make sure that they have that aftercare treatment that they actually need, and what does that actually look like? Today we're speaking to Palesa Mukumele, who's the head of community engagement and communications at DKMS Africa. Palesa, welcome on the show. We've got two Palesas on the show now. Wow, that's cool.
Hey.
Hey, Palesa.
Hey, Pali.
Bobito. Okay, all right. Let's move on. What's DKMS Africa? Tell us a little bit about that.
So we are an international non-profit organization operating in 7 different countries. And we basically help people who are diagnosed with blood cancers and blood disorders by finding them matching stem cell donors.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about transplant. I don't know, is there a difference between transplant and transfusions? I don't know. Am I using too much vocabulary here for this one? Am I complicating things by asking for that distinguishing factor between the two?
Well, we refer to our process as a transplant because stem cells are basically taken from a matching donor who's your genetic twin and put in the body of the patient. I don't think there is a huge difference between the two words, but to differentiate ourselves from blood donations, we use the word transplant because the processes are completely different.
Okay. Thanks for making that distinguishing factor. Well, we're not going to be speaking about the transplant process. We're going to be speaking about the aftercare of transplants, but we had to kind of set that tone so we know what we are talking about. Aftercare after a transplant, we didn't know this actually exists. We thought that after you actually get your transplant, you are sorted for life and get going. You are healthy, happy for you. But it's not the case. There's more to it.
Yes, absolutely. There's more to it. So there's a critical 100 days post-transplant that is absolutely critical for a patient to be in a sanitary, safe, isolated environment. And this is to allow the stem cells that are new to their body to engraft, which means that the body needs to accept the stem cells. So, of course, we celebrate the fact that you found a match in the first place because that's extremely difficult to find. But the fact that you've undergone this big process, which means that someone else's engine is basically in your car, in your own body, in the sense of the stem cells being inside your body. The body may reject the stem cells, and that's why those post 100 days post-transplant is so important. And this is unfortunately where a lot of patients lose their lives because they can get an infection. Some are going back into overcrowded homes, in unsanitary situations. And this is not only unique to South Africa, but obviously due to our social issues, we have an even greater challenge when it comes to this.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what happens when you actually get home. What should be the ideal environment?
The ideal environment when you get home is that the hospital will keep you in an isolated space.
Okay.
So in many cases, the only people who will access this isolation room will be your medical team. And if you have a member of your family, spouse, it can be a mother or father, they can also be in the space, but it's a very controlled space because your immune system was depleted, meaning that the body won't be able to fight any infection. And so when you are free then to go to recover at home and to recuperate at home, it's important that this that exposure to unsanitary conditions is limited. And this is why this is so important, because I mean, a stem cell transplant costs between 1,800,000 and 1 million rand.
That's a lot.
So you can imagine if after undergoing this very expensive procedure that you catch an infection and actually lose your life from something so small.
So what must you be staying away from? Must you be masked up like we were during COVID time? Must you be isolated? Must you stay in bed for a particular period in time? What kind of isolation should you have, or is it just about making sure that the environment is clean? It's not as dramatic as I'm putting it, taking us to our nightmarish COVID days.
No, and we remember those days. So you should be in a space that is free of unsanitary conditions. So we've had patients, for example, who would go back home where they're sharing a bathroom with many people. And that itself opens them to catching an infection. So the place itself, they're not living in a bubble, but exposure to germs should be limited.
Okay.
They may be required to mask up, but by the time they leave the hospital isolation, they would have passed some tests. So there would have been some engraftment fully. But getting them back into the world again is a slow, managed process, just so that their bodies are fit enough to be able to fight infection in case they catch anything.
And, the engraftment process, how long would it actually take? What must you consider there?
So it differs from patient to patient, but this is one of the most it's one of the most kind of looked for aspects of a post-transplant procedure when it comes to stem cell transplantation. When the body rejects the stem cells, remember, for example, only 30% of our patients are able to find a match within their own family, which means 70% rely on a complete stranger. So when we do find the stranger, and the stranger continues with the process, the stem cells are taken from their body and put into your body. You almost have this very short window to make sure that the person is engrafted, which usually takes about 100 days. It can be less than that. So some patients are able to spend 3 months in isolation. Others are able to spend more time in isolation, depending on how their body is reacting to these new stem cells that are in their body. Each body operates completely differently. So even though we say that we found your genetic twin, your own body still needs to accept the stem cells. And in some cases, the body completely rejects the stem cells, which then needs for the medical team to find other ways to help the body to accept it. But this is one of the biggest concerns. It's the biggest areas of research within stem cell transplantation.
I need to go to a break, Palesa. I'll come back to you, and we'll look at, the types of medications, the type of foods that you might be having to eat during that period of time. I'm sure there's a sensitivity in that as well, staying healthy during that period in time. We're speaking to Palesa Mokomele, Head of Community Engagement and Communications at DKMS Africa. We'll come back to speak about this very important conversation on World Blood Cancer Day.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Export depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
On the Move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday. Only on Channel Africa. #On the Move.
We're having a very interesting conversation about blood cancer recovery. And usually when we speak about, transplants, blood transplants, stem cell transplants in this particular circumstance, we don't really think about the aftercare. And as our guest, Palesa Mokomele, Head of Community Engagement and Communications at DKMS Africa, speaks to us, so we understand that actually the aftercare is just as important, if not more important, than just the transplant itself, because it's a huge factor when it comes to not just the recovery, but also, that particular patient actually surviving and staying alive. Palesa, thank you so much for staying with us. Now, you spoke a little bit about the peak conditions that someone who's just received a stem cell transplant should be in. But unfortunately, the majority of South Africans don't have those conditions. Almost 10% of households in South Africa rely on public taps. To over 25% share communal toilets. Hot water is a luxury in many homes. That means that the majority don't actually find themselves in a position to be in a sanitary environment that allows them to thrive after a transplant. So what happens after that? And what is an organization like DKMS Africa doing to try and help these cancer patients to have the perfect aftercare ecosystem?
So, interestingly, when DKMS came to South Africa about 4 years ago, we were only dealing with almost like the clinical side of, finding a stem cell match and then dealing with the clinical side. So the hematologists and the doctors and all of that. But what we found, particularly when dealing with patients in public healthcare facilities, was that the challenges were broader than just a clinical need. And so we started a patient services department that firstly studies the conditions of the patient in terms of their social needs, psychosocial needs. And what we discovered was that in some public healthcare facilities, a patient who is ready to go home is often kept in the facility so they're protected from infections, especially if their home is not able to support their medical needs post-transplant. And so through conversations with doctors, we learned that, they have to be given food to eat at home because they need food that's going to help them rebuild their bodies and their systems.
Yeah.
And so we've collaborated with organizations such as CHOC that provide housing and short-term housing for patients who travel from far.
Okay.
So we have lots of patients who travel from rural areas to seek treatment, moms who have to leave work and child to an urban facility or tertiary facility and have no way of going back home, or the child is hospitalized over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So we've collaborated with organizations that are able to offer this kind of support, not only for the patient, but for the families, for the immediate family. So we provide that. We provide food for the family because, in many cases, people have to leave work, which means that they don't have any form of livelihood.
Yeah.
We do a number of things to try and support on a psychosocial perspective, but we're very involved with the patients that we work with to make sure that we're at least able to support them before transplant, during transplant, and post-transplant.
But there's obviously a lot more support needed and necessary in this particular right when it comes to blood cancer patients. And what is that support that DKMS Africa is calling out for?
So I think our position is that there is a policy gap when it comes to how we deal with and support patients who need post-medical care, not only for stem cell transplantations, but, for example, we don't have a housing facility for patients who are stepping down from intense medical procedures and particularly those related to cancer. CHOC plays that role for children, but we don't have such a facility for adults. So if a mom is sick, what happens? Who's helping her to look after the children when she is coming out of such an intensive process? And particularly when she's 100 days, as I said, post-transplant, where is that support coming in? In terms of how we build houses, I mean, we're able to provide RDP houses, but often these are overcrowded, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need alternative solutions that I think are able to respond to the urgent needs that our citizens face. So we are in consultation with some departments and as a collective within the cancer space to try and look at how we can influence policy within this realm, because this is a reality for our patients.
Well, I'm glad that we can wrap it up like that, because it's important to understand that we can speak about health issues, but the health issues that we face also have a huge impact on the socioeconomic status of those particular patients. And, sometimes cancer has been seen as something, if you just need chemo, maybe you just need a transplant, and we leave it there because we don't really understand how much of an impact the socioeconomic situations we find ourselves in impacts also the medical issues that those patients are facing. Is there a way to find out more information and to support your endeavors as DKMS Africa in helping these blood cancer patients?
Certainly. So we provide support for patients who are diagnosed. We provide support for their families as well. People can find us on dkmsafrica.org. They can also call us on 0800 1210 82. We operate nationally. And if one would like to register to become a stem cell donor, they can also register online on our website. They need to be between the ages of 17 and 55.
I actually have to ask, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, this is great, I want to do something amazing. Is it painful? Is it painful to donate stem cells?
No, it's not painful.
Okay.
Actually, I was also identified as a donor, but unfortunately, I couldn't continue with the process. A lot of people who have donated say it's not painful, and that the overriding feeling of helping someone else is what pushes them to the end.
Okay.
That there's someone out there who is reliant on them to be there, to give them a second chance at life.
Okay, hopefully that also encourages some people to become stem cell donors, or to check if they can be stem cell donors at the very least. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, Palesa, and for the information that you've given us today.
Thank you very much.
That's Palesa Mokomele, Head of Community Engagement and Communications at DKMS Africa, speaking about the aftercare when it comes to blood cancer patients. Today, the 28th of May, is World Blood Cancer Day. Go ahead and get checked if you are eligible to become a stem cell donor. It's 11:30 Central Africa time. Once again, let's get our latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We start off with tennis news. South African tennis player Lloyd Harris produced a courageous display before losing in 4 sets to Russian 17th seed Andrei Rublev in the first round of the French Open. Rublev took 2 hours and 22 minutes to defeat the 28-year-old Capetonian 6-4, 4-6 and 6-3, 6-1 on court 7 at Roland Garros. Ultimately, it was the Russian greater match play and versatility that proved the difference against Harris, who underwent back surgery in October and has had limited match time at the highest level in 2025. Harris will take great encouragement from his performance, especially how he hung with Rublev during the first 3 sets and especially in the second when he came out on top in a few lengthy rallies. The big serving South African will draw confidence from his exploits on the Paris clay as he prepares for the grass and hard-court portions of the season over the next few months. Rugby News Sharks captain Eben Etzebeth says his side has finally found their feet in the United Rugby Championship URC after 4 seasons of participation in the tournament. The Sharks are confident they have learned how to win the tight encounters. The Sharks are preparing for a clash against Irish side Munster at Kings Park in Durban on Saturday, which Etzebeth believes will be settled by small margins.
The playoffs can be quite a tight affair. We are used to it by now, and I think maybe last season when we ended, I don't know, 12th or 13th, we lost the tight ones, and this year we turn around and we're actually winning them, and that's the difference. A couple of points, and now you all of a sudden have a home quarter. So we used to playing those tight games. Hopefully, we don't have to make it that tight. But yeah, we know, like I said, a quality side, and it's probably going to come down to discipline on the day. Who's got the better goal kicker, and yeah, it's going to be a very close game.
The Sharks will have to be all in against a side like Munster, who 2 seasons ago won the URC away from home. They also failed the mighty La Rochelle in the Champions Cup this season away from home in a knockout game. Elizabeth knows fully well that Munster is a playoff side with pedigree.
We know Munster, I think 2 seasons ago, I think they played a semi away and a final away. I'm not sure if they played a quarter away as well. So they are used to playoff success and winning away from home in knockout games, which are the most important. Everything you've done before now doesn't really count.
One of South Africa's rugby's up-and-coming coaching talents and well-travelled playmakers has joined the Uganda national team support staff. Former Springbok and Vodacom Bulls fullback Zane Kishner has linked up with the Cranes as a backs coach and will work closely with head coach Fred Mudiola and assistants Leonard Lubumbalu, Timothy Mudiola and Marvin Odongo. Kishner replaced Anton Mullman as head coach of the SWD Eagles in January 2024, having previously worked as an assistant coach at the Currie Cup First Division side, but recently parted ways with the Otinikwa Base outfit after a disappointing South African Cup campaign. And finally, South African football commentator Gloria Brown is optimistic. The Women Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON reigning champions Banyana Banyana will perform well at the highly anticipated continental spectacle taking place in Morocco from the 5th to the 26th of July 2025.
Let's not make the players fight against each other. They must see the value of one another and the support that we expect them to go into that camp. Because remember, coach can only play 11 at that moment in time. The others on the bench are equally important, but you've just got 11 on the field. So we've got to build everyone around there, and I think we'll do well. And more so for coach is a strength, and I know you have it.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fire Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa.
Okay.
Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Hey, Chanduko Ligeke joins us right now to wrap up the morning's business.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin and Palesa. Good morning. Emirates Global Aluminium subsidiary in Guinea has accumulated a stockpile of nearly 2 million metric tons of bauxite since the suspension of its operations last year. The The subsidiary, which is equally owned by Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund Mubadala and Dubai Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Investment Corporation of Dubai, operates one of the largest bauxite mines in Guinea through its Guinea Alumina Corporation subsidiary. The standoff with Guinea's government highlights the aggressive push by the military authorities to increase benefits from the country's vast natural resources. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu asked Parliament to approve more than $21.5 billion in foreign borrowing for its 2025-26 borrowing plan to plug financial shortfalls to boost growth. The new borrowing makes up around 60% of the total spending earmarked in the 2025 budget and marks a shift in the government plan to promote investment abroad to attract equity investors rather than debt to curtail rising debt costs. The 2025-26 borrowing plan will cover all sectors of the economy with specific emphasis on infrastructure, agriculture, health and education. South African Federation of Trade Unions SAFTU General Secretary Zulinzima Vavi says consumers should not bear the brunt of steep taxes while corporates enjoy huge profits without adequate contribution to the developmental agenda. He has also condemned National Treasury's proposed fuel levy increase, saying it will further burden struggling workers. He was speaking at the International Tax Reform Summit in Sandton, Johannesburg yesterday.
There would have been such a hullabaloo about the VAT, but there is no hullabaloo about the 16-cent increase on the fuel levy, as if it is exactly not the same. The poor, the working class, spend up to 60% of their income on transport and food.
The 11th edition of the annual Junior Indaba is currently underway in Johannesburg, South Africa. Hosted by the Resources for Africa, the two-day event is known for its no-holds-barred discussions on the future of exploration and junior mining in Southern Africa. One of the key sessions focused on the risks and opportunities facing junior mining projects across the continent. Lebohang Mabange is attending the event and she filed this report.
From mineral-rich deposits to high-risk environments, junior miners across Africa face a tough balancing act. On day one of the Junior Indaba, experts took a deep dive into the social, political and infrastructure challenges shaping mining projects in the region. One of the most pressing concerns, how political unrest can directly impact mining operations. Geert Clark, chairman of the Chamber of Mines of Mozambique, spoke about how protests in his country disrupted mining supply chains and threatened the industry's stability.
Japan's Nissan has started offering buyouts to U.S. workers and has suspended merit-based wage increases worldwide as the automaker expands cost cuts amid weak performance in key markets. CEO Ivan Espinosa announced a new round of cost cuts this month that include closing 7 production sites globally and cutting 11,000 more jobs, taking its total planned workforce reduction to around 20%. As part of the cuts, Nissan has offered separation packages to workers at its Kenton plant in Mississippi. Let's have a look at financial indicators this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 582, in Botswana 13 pula 26. Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 39. Zambia 27 kwacha 20. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 65. Russia 80 rubles 3. India 85 rupee 30. China 7 yuan 18. South Africa $1 is at 17 rand 89 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 88 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,310, platinum at $1,089 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $64.43 a barrel. That is all from me. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week. Big news from Channel Africa. Now you can listen and watch your favorite shows on Channel Africa. Channel Africa is streaming live on the internet on all social media pages at Channel Africa 1 from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. Central African Time. Download the SABC Plus app or visit our website www.channelafrica.co.za and stream us live on all our social media pages at Channel Africa 1. Channel Africa now streaming for your eyes and ears only. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Get set and be ready to go. On the move with Palesa Tawo and Benjamin Mushatama. Hashtag on the move and connect with us.
This one is titled True Love. Yemi Alade coming through on this one. It's 11:45 Central Africa time. Last week Friday, we had a very interesting conversation, a very interesting interview from the Johannesburg Art Gallery with their new exhibition called Isishone Zaga, which directly translates to proverbs and idioms. And it was great because we found out about how they would be able to, express some of our African proverbs within visual art and language as well. And then this weekend, I went home to go see my mom. And my mom was like, I was laughing at you and Benjamin because you guys kept saying Isishone Zaga. My mom is a Xhosa woman, by the way. She says it's not Zaga, it's Izaga.
Okay.
Right. That's how. So
Thank you, Mommy.
We were saying it wrong the entire time.
Why
right?
didn't Mommy send us a voice note? She always sends us a voice note.
Mom, she doesn't have the right phone right now. So her
we miss your voice notes, Mommy.
Yeah. So she doesn't have a smartphone right now, and she couldn't tell us. She was like, I was actually itching to send you guys a voice note to say you and Benjamin are saying it wrong, and actually it reminded me of a trend that's been going around, where children, because when you speak about idioms and proverbs, not everyone knows the most popular idioms and proverbs. You might learn some of those popular proverbs, the universal English ones.
Yeah.
At school, but not everyone learns it at school. But then you'll learn it through life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll learn in life when people say them to you, or you just hear them, and then you'll know, okay, these are popular idioms or proverbs, and I know what they mean.
Yeah.
But we can't exactly think that people know what they mean, especially children.
Yeah.
You can't say to a child, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, if you've never really taught them that particular proverb, what it is and what it means. So there's a new trend that's been on TikTok where children are given half a sentence of a popular English proverb, and because they might not have heard it before, they have to complete the sentence of that popular proverb.
Okay.
So something like this.
Okay.
Don't put all your eggs in
the oven.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. She's right.
Don't judge a book by
library.
Out of sight, out of
night.
An apple a day keeps the doctor
healthy.
Yes,
100%.
Pretty much.
The best things in life are
perfect.
Can't teach an old dog
to sit.
Yes, you cannot.
You
when
cannot
the
teach an
going
old dog to
gets
sit.
tough. The tough gets
Stronger.
Okay, she's actually wise.
songs don't make
Sense.
Yeah,
don't make sense.
wrongs don't make sense.
She is brilliant. I feel like she was creating her own
new proverbs.
Yeah.
And it comes to think, we're actually learning these things to society, but we can't think they're universal simply because they exist.
Mm-hmm.
They don't exist until they're actually taught to you. Some adults have actually been jumping on this trend, using ways to make these idioms also fun and just like making them nonsensical, because who said they have to be in one particular way? This one actually captured my attention by this couple on TikTok.
All right.
Whatever goes up, it's gone.
There's light at the end of the tavern.
Sorry. When it rains, it pours. If not you, then whoever, man.
It is, what is it?
The English there, I'm not sure if the English works there.
It is, what is it?
No money.
There's light at the end of the tavern.
Oh, yes, there is. I like that one. That one will work
Your
for
favorite
many
one,
of us.
there's light at the end of the tavern.
Yeah, there's light there. You know, when you go to that place, yeah, man. We are Kanya.
So I love that. That's what we have today on our TikTok feature. Really funny, but I think it's lovely to know that, kids, without actually being taught particular things, can come up with things just, from the top of their head.
Yeah, I've been loving this one because I'm slowly trying to figure out TikTok. There's this one that has like, if shoes could sing, they would sing these songs.
Oh,
if
yes,
shoes in the office
I
could
love
sing.
that
And then you've got
one.
people's shoes, and then a song would come up.
And you're like, yeah, that's actually perfectly fitting for that
song.
particular song.
So it's like, those are interesting because they show people with different shoes.
And the personality of the shoe itself.
In a song. Yeah, so those are very, very funny. TikTok feature, that's how we wrap it up today.
Keeping you on the know and on the move.
Tonifica. Mr. Carly. Oh, yeah. Let's go. não vai embora. Já vou crer para nunca mais. Me está pedindo com toda força por reconsiderar decisão. Essa gente mais te perdeu e culpa é só de meu. Depois dá só uma chance. Não tem nem medo perdeu. Coisa que pode fazer para mudar mais uma chance. Só tem que pedir o cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Cabo aí. Não, amor, se vou bem que te aguenta, te fica triste e te lamenta. Minha peito te queima, te quenta. Cabo bem, nem cabo tenda. Olha, amor, a boinha se banha terra. É boquinha lua e estrela. É só bom. Se indo tamante pediu o cabo deixa. Se indo tamante pediu o cabo larga. Desculpa para tudo e hacer. Foi falta de maturidade. De hoje em dia tenta mudar. Ainda não tem tempo de mudar. De mudar. Cabo pai, cabo pai, cabo pai, cabo pai. Fica ali comigo. Oh, não te pediu cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Não, cabo aí. Cabo aí. Não, cabo
Hey, this is a fun one, isn't it? There, that's Mr. Kali there with one title, Tamuda, all the way from Angola. We are getting ready to get out of here. Lulu Kapu is joining us right now. You know, from midday to 1 o'clock Central African time, we take you back in what's happening in the reality of the continent, news that are happening in different parts. Correspondents are streaming right into our live studio here in Johannesburg to make sure that we are in the know. We've got commentary, we've got context there. So definitely it's a show that makes sure that every day you know what's happening here in Africa. Lulu Kabu leading the team. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. And how are you? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you.
Yeah.
How are you, Lulu?
I'm good. No complaints.
Nice
it's
one,
a
man.
good day.
It's a good day.
Yourself, are you good?
Amen to that.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so coming up on Africa Update today, the Namibians are remembering over 70,000 people massacred by German colonial forces over a century ago. And this is something that's quite topical because a number of countries have been, speaking of reparations. A number of leaders have been speaking about that. And we've seen reparations for, Namibians at some point and by the Germans. So it's something that we'll be unpacking very closely on Africa Update today. And then also a government's call to assist in curbing hunger on World Hunger Day today. We'll be focusing on that because the scenes and the visuals that we see on our screens are actually quite horrific on social media. And, when children ask, why are these children not getting food, or why do they look so tiny, and so on. So something that we as humans have to face and deal with. So this is something we'll also be focusing on Africa Update today.
Well, looking forward to that one. It's very weird, right? How we are agriculturally rich. We've got so many sources of vitamins, minerals, and all sorts of things that we can ingest in our bodies.
Yeah.
But hey, we are scarce when it comes to distributing those things equally. Food.
Food.
That's a sad
and
one.
it's a very sad one.
Yeah, I'm
and,
going to listen to that.
You know, I think the African continent has a lot of produce in terms of agricultural produce.
And you wonder, why are we
and
hungry?
Why are we hungry? Why are children
this world
hungry?
is unfair to Africans.
Yeah, it's something that the African continent needs to look at, especially focusing inwardly, because this is where I think we're missing it, where we're focusing outward across the rest of the world and not really taking care of ourselves on the continent. So it's something that we'll unpack today with a lot more coming up.
All right, looking forward to that one. And we leave you with this beautiful song by Davido. Here he's hanging out with the Sunday Service Choir. This one is titled Stand Strong. Stand Strong, Africa. Until next time, God bless.
We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising.